On February 1st, 1959, 9 experienced hikers made a decision that would baffle investigators for over 60 years. They cut their way out of their tent and ran barefoot into a frozen nightmare. What they were running from, we still don't know. This is the story of the Dylatov Pass incident, the coldest case in history. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button because this story goes places you won't expect, and stick around to the end because the latest evidence might finally explain what happened on that mountain. But I promise you, the answer is more unsettling than you think. January 23rd, 1959. 10 young people gather at the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Sverdlovsk, Soviet Union. They're not amateur thrill seekers, they're experienced hikers, students and graduates, engineers and athletes, the kind of people who plan meticulously and respect the mountains. Their leader is 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, calm, methodical, the person everyone trusts. With him are 7 men and 2 women. Yuri Doroshenko, 21, engineering student. Georgy Krivonishenchenko, 23, former soldier. Rustam Slobodin, 23, engineer. Nicholas Thibault Brignoles, 23, engineer. Alexander Kolevatov, 24, engineer. Zenaida Kolmogorova, 22, one of 2 women. Ludmila Dubinina, 20, economics student. And Semyon Zolotaryov, 37, the oldest World War II veteran. And Yuri Yudin, 21, who will become the sole survivor. Their goal was to reach Mount Oturtan, 300 kilometers north, and return. It's a Category 3 route, the highest difficulty rating in Soviet mountaineering. Success means certification as elite hikers. This isn't recreation, it's achievement. They pack carefully, skis, tents, food for 2 weeks, cameras. They joke, sing songs, and take photographs. In one photo, Zolotaryov plays a mandolin. In another, they're building a mock-up snow shelter, laughing. These are people fully alive, confident, prepared. January 27th, they board a train, then a truck, then begin skiing into the wilderness. The weather is harsh, temperatures dropping to -25 to 30 degrees Celsius, but they're ready, they've trained for this. January 28th, Yuri Yudin feels ill, back pain, possibly sciatica. He makes the hardest decision of his life, turn back. The others continue. He takes their final group photo, 9 smiling faces. He waves goodbye, not knowing that would be the final time he would see them alive. By February 1st, they've reached the slopes of Kholat Syakhl. The local Mansi people call it the Mountain of the Dead, not as a threat, but as a warning. This is where nature doesn't compromise. At approximately 5 p.m., they pitch their tent on an exposed slope at 1,079 meters elevation. It's not ideal, too exposed for wind, but they're running behind schedule. They decide to camp here rather than descend to the tree line 1.5 kilometers below. That night, the wind picks up, snow begins to fall, and then something happens. February 12th, the group was supposed to send a telegram from the village of Vizhai. No telegram arrives. At first, no one panics. Delays are common in winter expeditions. But days pass, then a week, then 2. Then, on February 20th, families demand action. The Ural Polytechnic Institute organizes a search party, students, teachers, volunteers. Then the military joins, helicopters, search planes. They comb the wilderness. 6 days later, on February 26th, a search team spots something on the slope of Kholat Syakhl, a tent partially collapsed under snow. They approach cautiously. What they see makes no sense. The tent is badly damaged, but not by weather. It's been cut open from the inside. Long slashes through the canvas, as if someone used a knife in desperate haste. Boots are still inside, neatly arranged. Coats, warm clothing, cameras,
journals. Their last diary entry, dated February 1st, reads simply, "Now we will start making a fire and go to sleep. It's scary." Leading away from the tent, down the slope toward the forest, footprints. 8 or 9 sets, investigators estimate. Some are bare feet, others in socks, a few wearing a single shoe. No signs of struggle, no animal tracks, no evidence of an avalanche, just orderly footprints, walking, not running, into the darkness. The trail leads 1.5 kilometers downhill to the edge of the forest and then disappears into the trees. On February 27th, so 1 week after the search began, at the forest edge, beneath a towering cedar tree, searchers find the first 2 bodies, Yuri Doroshenko and Georgy Krivonishenchenko. Both were dressed only in underwear, barefoot, frozen solid. Next to them, the remnants of a small fire. Branches are broken off the cedar up to 5 meters high, as if someone had climbed it frantically. The search team was left stunned. Why would experienced hikers flee their shelter, half-dressed into the lethal cold, and then try to climb a tree? Over the next few days, 3 more bodies are found scattered between the cedar tree and the tent, as if they tried to return but collapsed from hypothermia. Igor Dyatlov was found 300 meters from the cedar tree, face down in the snow. Zenaida Kolmakarova 630 meters from the cedar tree in a skiing position. Rustam Slobodin 480 meters from the cedar tree, lying on his back. All 3 show signs of trying to crawl back up the slope toward the tent. All 3 are partially dressed, slightly more clothing than the first 2, but still inadequate for the cold. Autopsies confirm hypothermia. But here's what's strange. Slobodin has a small skull fracture, not severe enough to kill him immediately, but present nonetheless.
4 hikers remain unaccounted for. The snow is too deep, so the search is called off until spring. On May 4th, over 2 months since the search began, after the snow melts, searchers return to the ravine 75 meters from the cedar tree. They probe the area. Their poles hit something solid under 4 meters of snow. They dig. What they find changes everything. 4 bodies lying in a rocky creek bed. Lyudmila Dubinina, Semyon Zolotaryov, Alexander Kolevatov, and Nicholas Thibault Brignoles. They were better dressed than the others, wearing pieces of clothing from those who died first. Dubinina was wearing Krivonishenko's pants. Zolotaryov has Dubinina's coat wrapped around his foot. This suggests they survived longer, that they scavenged clothing from their dead friends to stay alive. But then, the autopsies reveal something that turns this tragedy into a mystery. Lyudmila Dubinina was missing her tongue, both eyes, part of her lips, and facial tissue. Massive chest trauma, ribs broken on both sides. No external wounds. Semyon Zolotaryov was missing his eyes. 5 broken ribs, massive chest trauma. No external wounds. Nicholas Thibault Brignoles had severe skull fracture. No external wounds. The medical examiner, Boris Vozrojdeny, writes in his report that the force required to cause such injuries is comparable to a high-speed car crash. But there are no bruises, no cuts, no abrasions on the skin. How do you break someone's ribs without leaving a mark? The Soviet investigation interviews witnesses, examines the evidence, and reaches a conclusion that satisfies no one. The cause of death was a compelling natural force which the hikers were unable to overcome. That's it. No specifics, no clear explanation.
In May 1959, the case is closed. Files are sealed. The area is declared off-limits for 3 years. For decades, the Dyatlov Pass incident becomes a whisper, a campfire story, a Soviet secret, a mystery that refuses to die. The most rational explanation is that they experienced an avalanche, a sudden snowslide, forcing them to cut their way out and flee. But the evidence resists. The angle of the slope was only 15 to 20 degrees, too gentle for avalanches. The tent wasn't buried, it was still partially standing. Footprints remained visible days later, unlikely after a major slide. Experienced hikers would know avalanche terrain. Still, it's the explanation most investigators return to. Back then, the Soviet Union was obsessed with secrecy. There were reports from nearby villages of strange lights in the sky that night, orange spheres, glowing orbs, explosions heard in the distance. Could the hikers have stumbled into a weapons test, a missile malfunction? Secret military activity. There were supporting evidence to back this claim because of the high levels of radiation found on some clothing. Zolotaryov was wearing military gear despite being a civilian, and the area had known military installations nearby. But no documents ever surfaced, no physical traces, no credible confirmation, just speculation. This is where it gets fascinating. In the 1990s, researchers proposed infrasound, low-frequency sound waves below human hearing, as the culprit. Mountains can create infrasound when wind passes over specific terrain features. These frequencies vibrate through the human body, causing extreme anxiety, panic attacks, irrational fear, physical discomfort. Imagine lying in a tent. The wind howls. Something you can't hear but can feel vibrates through your chest. Your heart races. Terror builds with no rational source. Would that be enough to make you cut your way out and run? Here's something medical. In severe hypothermia, victims often undress. It's called paradoxical undressing. As the body shuts down, blood vessels dilate, creating a false sensation of warmth. Victims, confused and dying, remove their clothes, thinking they're overheating. This could explain why some were found in underwear, but it doesn't explain why they left the tent in the first place. So, in 2019, 60 years after the case began, Russian authorities officially reopened the case. Modern technology, new analysis, a team of scientists from Switzerland and Russia worked together to achieve a breakthrough. They focus on one question: could a delayed avalanche have caused this? Not a typical avalanche, something rarer. A slab avalanche that builds pressure slowly, then releases suddenly, sometimes hours after the trigger. Using computer models, they recreate the conditions on February 1st, 1959. Wind speeds, snow accumulation patterns, tent placement, slope angle. They simulate a small slab avalanche, not enough to bury the tent, but enough to create a sudden, violent impact. The results: a localized snowslide could have struck the tent with enough force to cause blunt force injuries. Not enough to destroy the tent, but enough to panic the occupants. In the chaos and darkness, confused and possibly injured, the hikers cut their way out and fled downhill, intending to wait out the danger in the forest, then return. But in -30-degree cold, wearing inadequate clothing, hypothermia sets in fast. This theory explains why they fled, the blunt force injuries, why the tent wasn't destroyed, why they went downhill seeking shelter in trees. But it struggles with the missing soft tissues, tongue, eyes, the precise internal injuries without external marks. Why experienced hikers didn't return immediately, and the reports of strange lights. One scientist suggests the soft tissue damage could be from scavenging animals, decomposition, or water flow in the creek bed where 4 bodies were found. It's plausible, but not perfect. Yuri Yudin, the one who turned back, lived with survivor's guilt for the rest of his life. He spent decades investigating what happened to his friends. In interviews before his death in 2013, he said,
"If I had known what awaited them, I would have held on to them and not let them go."
If you want more unsolved mysteries and deep dives into history's darkest moments, make sure you're subscribed. Drop a comment below. What do you think happened on the Dyatlov Pass? Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay safe, and maybe stay off that mountain.